You know what? This is my day. I'm doing this. Honey, what are you doing? We need a vacuum.
So much dog hair in this house.
I'm so sick. Hey, somebody's got to clean up all this rhino hair. Oh my
Is that one of the
gosh.
rhinos from the Stampede? Did you steal that? Yeah, I did, honey. Hi, all. Welcome to Movie AAR, Movie After Action Review, where John and I review scenes from movies that are chaotic, usually chaotic in nature, just absolutely ridiculous. This week, we'll be looking at Jumanji and a very specific, very odd scene, a lot of weird things going on, and we're going to break it down for you. John, can you set up the scene for us?
There's a stampede that happens through the town. So they roll the dice. It chose Stampede. It comes barreling through a bookcase and eventually makes it out to the town where we find ourselves in this scene. And there's just mayhem everywhere. Somehow there's a ton of people in the center of this really small town in New England. And Pat and I think it might be a fair, something else going on, but there's just a ton of people. Stampede starting to come through. It's the elephants, the rhinos, zebra. We got all kinds of African animals just barreling through, crushing cars. People are looting everywhere. Somehow there's an appliance shortage. Everything except for one homeless dude who can't be bothered. He's like raising his hands like, what? Meanwhile, we have our antagonist of the film, and the boy's been turned into like a monkey boy, and the hunter's trying to get him. So lots of mayhem happening. We have this mass murder plus a stampede plus people rioting and stealing stuff. It's insane. And that set us up for Jumanji 1. Obviously, there's lots of crazy things happening with the Stampede. It's kind of hard to talk about what's real, what's fake. But let's talk about what's real, what's fake. Break it down the scene. Pat, what's real, what's fake in this scene?
There's a lot. There's a lot that's a lot of both. The animals are from a different dimension. They appear to be real, but they don't appear to have the same weights as animals in our universe have. There's a scene with a car that's being stepped on by an elephant, and the car doesn't get crushed until the third step of the elephant on the back of the car. So the windshield's totally fine. The front of the car, totally fine. Elephant's just stepping right on it. So that's unrealistic. There are people looting, but that's probably realistic. And John, you could probably tell us a bit more about what we saw people looting.
We noticed at the beginning of this scene that there was just appliances stacked on top of each other in a store, which was a terrible idea for like
fire hazard.
Just the hazard of it. Let alone the town has clearly gone through an economic downturn with the closing of the factory, and they talk about that in the movie. And then all of a sudden with the Stampede, you have windows broken and a bunch of appliances on the outside. And so people are picking up, they're not even good. There's the crappy vacuum that was taken. Two guys are carrying away an armchair, which is hilarious.
Someone's running away with a rug at some point. There's all sorts of papers and boxes and all sorts of stuff all over the street for maybe no reason. We're not really sure. Ever since the shoe factory closed that Robin Williams character's dad worked at, that was the big moneymaker for the town. Once that closed, people couldn't get appliances anymore. You could see them stacked up in the windows. So people aren't buying them. They've just been waiting for a stampede of animals to come through their town so they could get free vacuums.
It's hard to talk about what's real, what's fake.
I think maybe the behaviors maybe of some of the animals, maybe the behaviors of the humans are what's real.
Once they start rioting, they're kind of animals too. When the boy hides in the front of the car instead of on the seat, I thought that was both real and a smart idea.
And he survived getting crushed by an elephant.
Get out, found an enclosed space that kept him alive.
There were no police in sight at all.
Ton of people, but no police, no security. No one's checking to make sure, even in normal hours, the situation doesn't turn into something else.
In a small town like that too, the fire station and the police station wouldn't be far away. But it would likely be, one person as the sheriff. Maybe they have a deputy, but I'm talking about a tiny town here.
Those people are pretty dumb because they were looting but they were also still going in the same direction as the animals.
Yeah, that never makes sense in movies where people are running away from the thing that's chasing them, but they're running directly in front of the thing. Where if they just moved off to the side, they would probably be okay. They probably just watch it. Or when airplanes or buses are driving away from a tower that is falling and they don't make any turns, they just go, well, we can make it. Just keep driving.
We can do this. Also, who's the real monster here? Because those store owners who had so many appliances in a town that clearly needs them, they weren't helping anybody out.
Yeah, it sounds like they maybe had their prices marked too high in a very quiet town, plus a random stampede.
I mean, gosh,
they just feel the ground shaking and they're like, oh, this is looting time. This is our day.
Well, yes, I'm
going to get the new coffee maker.
You know what? This is my day. I'm doing this. Honey, what are you doing? We need a vacuum.
So much dog hair in this house.
I'm so sick. Hey, somebody's got to clean up all this rhino hair. Oh my!
Is that one of the rhinos from the Stampede? Did you steal that? Yeah, I did, honey.
Okay, so we talked about what's real, what's fake. Obviously, the scene is absolutely ridiculous. People kind of acting insane in this situation, kind of real. Patrick, how would you rate this scene from 1 to 10?
Nothing about it seems realistic. Maybe what's realistic is people that are running away from a stampede of animals. People that loot during disasters. That's real. Different things are real. Just they're all in the same they're all in the same place at the same time. I don't know, maybe 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I was gonna say like 5. I was even gonna be a little more generous. I would say maybe a 7 out of 10. Because the only thing that was unrealistic was how the animals got there. So, like, okay, you could have a situation that you don't expect that turns it into a riot. Something can spark panic, right? And and how people act in a panic, I would say that's totally real. Except for like the homeless guy. That was hilarious to me.
Smart people buy instinct-ready go bags. It's all the cool things. Upgraded emergency preparedness, multiple options designed for every home. Created by first responders, and they were even featured in the New York Times. Go to thereadinesslab.com/shop or click on the link below to pick up your bag today. Land ahoy! So what are emergency managers doing? Even if they're not by title emergency managers, what are the law enforcement or the first responders of the town doing?
Yeah, I think you and I totally identified that because this is a small town, they're not going to have identified emergency manager. They're not going to have the budget for an emergency manager, most likely. So the fallback typically is either a police chief or a fire chief. A sheriff or a fire chief. So if it is a sheriff, Pat, what is the sheriff doing?
With this small of a town, he'll probably have limited staff. Probably won't have a lot of staff. So what's going to happen is going to happen, and they're going to pick up the pieces afterwards. But, they may, if they can, if they did have resources at a nearby city that could come in, maybe they could put up a perimeter. Maybe they could talk with shop owners, make sure people are okay. Maybe they could help deploy fire. Maybe they could work with the city manager or maybe the county. Starting there, at least seeing if people are okay. Going to the scene and just getting situation awareness and starting to secure it, really to secure the town.
The closest zoo. They have to have tranquilizers or some other kind of, they'd be providing guidance of how to lure the animals together, maybe stop a stampede. Yeah, they would be definitely focusing on the original threat, which would be the animals.
And eventually the animals would slow down and they'd go and find the animals. And try to capture them, or if they were headed towards another town or still stampeding people, it just kind of depends.
Every scenario that I'm aware of, like the one in Ohio that happened several years ago, they basically used a bunch of officers to, hunt the animals so that they wouldn't cause a threat anymore. And we're talking about a very dangerous situation here. The zebra is fine, but especially the rhinos. That's pretty scary stuff. Elephants can become pretty territorial as well. So I think there would be memorandums of understanding and or calls from friends in local communities saying, hey, please help me wrangle this or manhandle this. But then you have the other problem, the riot. And you have people stealing left and right, and you have all that stuff. And so this is where I would think an emergency manager would come in. The sheriff's going to do his job. right? Getting the animals, but there's aftermath. There's going to be a lot of problems in the aftermath. There's going to be survivors. There's going to be likely people who are hurt.
People with trauma,
trauma, the whole deal. Yeah, working through that trauma, but also the recovery. Maybe the county would submit to the state a request to get funding to help repair those shops.
Street lights, stop signs, anything that they mowed down. Any state or any government property, which is probably a lot of government property that the animals just ran over.
I'm trying to think else would be damaged. Your pride.
Your lion pride? Was there a lion pride in this movie I missed?
Yeah, you got the pun. You got the pun. Yes.
Well, I finally got it. I finally got one out of like 15.
Yes. Let's talk about our public service announcement. Of course, there's the Stampede situation, but let's talk about the human situation. The riot that happens, people stealing a bunch of stuff. What happens if you're out shopping and things escalate out of nowhere, right? Things can happen and people start looting and or rioting around you. What do you do?
Yeah, if you find yourself in the center of a crowd, try to get out of the crowd, but don't try to go against the crowd. Go with the crowd and kind of go out, maybe not where the crowd is going, maybe left or right out of the crowd, making your way out instead of going in reverse. You don't want to appear like you're going against the crowd, or you appear suspect, or try to get to safety.
Yeah, don't start like trying to record people or whatever for evidence. But what you might want to do is just like go along, but I would move at a slower pace than they would move. And once I was in a safe different distance, I was separated from them, I would beeline it out of there. Another thing that I would do is I would hold on to my wife's belt, or I would have her hold on to my jacket so that she was attached to me, or we'd lock arms, because you don't want them to separate. And with kids, you don't want your kids to be walking in that situation. You want to be carrying your kids. Get them out of there.
Don't separate from your family. Every movie wants you to separate from your family when these catastrophic things happen, like you're being hugged by 4 people that are pulling you away from your family.
And Patrick and I were thinking about this situation before we were coming up, and Patrick shared a great idea about, thinking about it like a wave. You don't want to go against the riptide, and you don't want to just go to shore because you can be swept under. But what you want to do is to go perpendicular with it. And that's kind of the idea with this crowd too. You don't want to just be like fighting against that crowd, because you will get run over or hurt some way. But if you can just go with it and just kind of just veer off to the side, or go a little bit slower than the people going around you, and just kind of, blend into the crowd and get away as fast as possible. One thing you might want to be aware of is don't immediately go into a building if the people are not moving on, because that building can catch fire. You can get hurt inside of there. So it's better to, just kind of go along with the flow a little bit if you can.
Yeah, there's just a general best practice of when you're in public spaces now, with all the active shooters that have happened, with all the different, riots, protests, whatever it is. I mean, usually if it's a protest, you know what you're getting into. But maybe you didn't realize you'd get so claustrophobic, or you didn't know that the people that you're with wouldn't like it so much, and you'd get right in the middle of it and then need to get out, and it's very close together. So always be aware of your surroundings. Just be aware of your surroundings. Know where your exits are. They, you can see them in the movie theaters. You know where they are in the grocery store. You try to know where they are in the crowd. If you're really short, that could be really difficult if you're in a crowd. But eventually just move long enough in one direction, like John said, perpendicular to where the crowd is going, and you'll likely get out of the crowd, even if you're too short to really see your way out.
So it just reminds me of the ones with they were crushed at the Astro World concert, where, man, like you could just get caught up. You think you're going to a concert. Like I said, things can just escalate. And so like knowing your surroundings, know the people who you're with and where they're at, making sure that you keep yourself in a healthy and safe area, even if you're enjoying yourself at a concert. Good call outs, kind of serious, but that's what we do for our jobs. We look at a ridiculous situation like a stampede of animals coming in from rolling the dice, to breaking it down to something more logical that you can both process and manage. And all of a sudden, you start to add all these things up. And guess what? You're an emergency manager, or you're really safe and you're not getting hurt and you can still enjoy yourself. And you're a new appliance that you just got for free at your local appliance store.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. We're talking about stampedes. We're talking about getting free stuff. We don't want you to riot. So in order to help you out, we're going to send you a small vacuum. We're going to send somebody a small vacuum. But what you have to do is on this post on Instagram, which is part of our show for Jumanji, if you share this on your story on Instagram and tag us, make sure you follow and like this post, obviously. But if you tag us, you're going to be put into a raffle, and we're going to send somebody a free vacuum to honor all those people who survived the Stampede in Jumanji. Make sure you check us out on all of our videos, all of our clips. We love doing this. And if you have a movie idea, extra points for people who tag us and put a movie idea for the next movie you want us to do.
All right, well, that's it. Thanks for attending Movie AAR, or this week's movie, Jumanji. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and to visit the Readiness Lab at readinesslab.com. Bye.
Peace.
Movie R.
Movie R.
Movie R.